Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, her husband, Paul Pelosi, who we've talked about here before on this channel, previously charged with the DUI, got that whole thing buttoned up, apparently has been assaulted. He was attacked in his home, according to multiple police reports and to an FBI report that just came out, which we will take a look at. A FBI special agent drafted a criminal complaint. It hit the court dockets. They're alleging that this individual, David Depape or Depape, many different pronunciations out there, but we're calling it Pelosi-Depape, so we all know who it is. Pelosi-Depape was charged with several crimes, and we'll check in first from the announcement that came out from the San Francisco Police Department. This is the chief of police, and I don't see his name. San Francisco chief of police reporting on the attack against Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi. Apparently, while he was home late at night, an individual broke in with a hammer, and it all went downhill from there.
At approximately 2:27 this morning, San Francisco police officers were dispatched to the residence of Speaker Nancy Pelosi regarding an a-priority well-being check. When the officers arrived on scene, they encountered an adult male and Mr. Pelosi's husband, Paul. Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer.
Two hands.
The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it.
Whack.
Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him, took him into custody, requested emergency backup, and rendered medical aid. The suspect has been identified as 42-year-old David Depape.
David Depape, identified by the San Francisco Police Department as the individual who attacked Paul Pelosi, saying that he went in there with a hammer and that they were both sitting there with their hands on the hammer until police showed up. Door opened. We're going to have a lot of questions about that. Where'd the hammer come from? Was it Paul's hammer? Is it David's hammer? Is it a household hammer? Was there a third party there? Who opened the door? Who called the police? A lot of questions. But we get a little bit of information from the San Francisco Police Department, and the media had a lot more questions on top of that. They talked to this guy. San Francisco Sergeant Laufengerger is responding to a question about the attack on Paul Pelosi. Hey, whose hammer was that? They say that Paul was attacked with a weapon, the weapon being a hammer. We often ask who the gun belonged to or who the knife belongs to. But where about this hammer? Where did this hammer come from?
We can confirm that there was one hammer involved. There was an altercation, and Mr. Pelosi and Mr. Depape were struggling for control of the hammer.
Okay.
Was it inside the residence? Inside the residence?
I can't go into that.
Do you know whose hammer it was?
I don't know whose hammer it was.
Whose hammer was it? Did Depape bring it in with him, or was it Paul's hammer? And why was Paul out with a hammer? Why was a hammer just hanging around? Maybe he was hanging some paintings up. Don't know. But a very interesting story, and we have a lot of questions about it. Now, as the media was scrambling to blame this on all of the MAGA Republican insurrectionists, extremists, ultra megas, the media was working overtime to try to cover over the actual truth on this. This clip is from the media reacting to the attack on Paul Pelosi. You hear a journalist in the background saying, "Can we talk about the fact that we know this guy is the nudist guy, or should we just leave all of that out?"
Okay, so is this the dude that was a former, nudist dude?
The nudist dude.
Yeah, okay. Is it okay to say any of that stuff?
Can we talk about it?
No?
No?
Yeah, all right, cool. All right, so, but we kind of
Okay.
have working knowledge of who this guy may be. Hang on one second. Let me go see what they've got over here. I'll call you back. Bye.
Can we talk about the fact that that guy was the nudist colony guy? Oh, we can't? Okay, but we do know who he is, right? Okay, I guess we'll just call him. What would you like me to call him instead of nudist? Oh, MAGA extremist. Oh, perfect. Yeah, we can probably do that because it's perfect for us. We needed an October surprise. Everything looks like it's going off the rails for us. We thought that this Dobbs decision was going to give us the oomph that we needed to close out this election, but that hasn't happened. And so we really, really needed something like A hammer attack on the skull of Nancy Pelosi's husband. Perfect. That'll do. So go with that rather than the nudist. The nudist 2 a.m. late night romp story. Don't go with that at all. Leave that all out of it. And so you can see why that raises some eyebrows for some people. Now, over at this individual's residence, I want to show you what happens when the feds show up. Because, listen, we just heard two different clips from two different San Francisco police officers. A local San Francisco police guy, he's there. He seems very competent. He can do investigations. There are all sorts of home invasions in San Francisco. Happens all the time, right? All the time. It's San Francisco. People just take carts out of Walmart. Just, it's mine now. It's what are you going to do about it? Nothing. So he's very experienced with this type of criminality. They just let it go on and on and on. This guy is too. Very competent local police officers. And they were there, right? They responded. The FBI wasn't there at all. But guess who showed up? Oh, that's right. The FBI showed up. Why? It's like those scenes out of the movies where, you know, you have John McClane and Sergeant, and they're standing there in Nakatomi Tower, and they're solving this whole thing, and then the feds show up, and they're like, hey, we're going to wreck everything. The feds are here. And it's just taking over the investigation. They don't want the local cops to be involved in this and finish this out. The feds show up. It's our jurisdiction here, and we'll take it over. So they show up, and this is what it looks like when somebody is there outside the residence of David Depape, Pelosi's-Depape. You see that there's a crowd forming and there's a flag floating around in the background. Looks like it's got multiple colors, and I'm not an expert at identifying all the various flags, so forgive me if I am mistaking it, but it looks like it might be one of those flags that endorses a lefty cause. Let's take a look at what happens when the FBI shows up. They say, it's our case, it's our jurisdiction. We're going to make sure this whole thing gets handled the way we want it to get handled. Why don't you all step aside?
No, I mean, yeah, so what did you guys want to talk about? Move over to the side. We don't care about anything else, but let's just go over there and talk about.
Looks like a rainbow flag with a marijuana leaf on there. Interesting front yard.
Daniel, that guy's there.
Somebody says, hey, the FBI's here.
That guy's there. FBI.
Federal Bureau of Investigation, they're shouting in the background.
I mean, you surprised? I mean, there's a bazillion news reporters knocking on our door. Fucking Jesus Christ. Yeah, so, I mean, they want to come talk to us.
Now, we'll speed this up a little bit. You see the FBI now starts to cross into the property. Here is apparently the FBI, according to the author or the poster of this video.
On there, you can just be able to pull the thing.
This right here?
Yeah. Oh, well, why don't you want to talk
FBI. Now, look at these FBI agents. Plain clothes.
Okay.
Excuse me while I secure the gate here.
So very interesting property. People coming out of the property. This FBI agent backs up. You're going to see a woman come into frame, and he's like, what are you doing, lady? He says, can we help you? She says, I'm a reporter for so-and-so.
The news reporter knocked on our door and said that.
There's a he says, there's a reporter in your yard. Do you want a reporter in your yard?
Are you not reporting?
No, just go away, reporters. Reporters, go away. Go.
Reporters go away. The reporter responds, are you not reporters? Like, who are you guys? You're here in plain clothes. You look like a bunch of slobs who just got off a bus stop. Why are you here? And why are you interfering with me? I'm a journalist. I can do whatever the hell I want. And so who the hell do you think you're talking to?
This is the FBI.
That's the FBI.
For real?
Yeah, no
Oh,
joke.
sorry.
Journo says, didn't know that was the FBI. Hear that is one more time.
Are you not reporting?
No, just go away, reporters. Reporters, go away. Go away.
This is the FBI.
Yeah, go
For
away.
real?
Yeah, no
Oh,
joke.
sorry.
Oh, for real? Yeah, that's the FBI. Just schlub it around all over the place. You know, I thought they were supposed to, you know, look like official special agents and, yeah, but
I mean, I don't know.
it's the FBI. So they show up. We're in charge now. We don't know who the FBI agent is who authored the criminal complaint, which we are going to look at next, but it is a female agent, and so it could be one of the two females who showed up with this crew. We don't know. They get invited into the house,
Wait, no, it's the dogs. I just realized they're dogs.
or not. You see the bus that has all sorts of spray paint on it. You see spiders floating around. They go around to the side. Evidently, this individual, David Pelosi-Depape, was living in the garage. And so the conversation continues there. FBI showing up at David Depape's house. And we don't know what happened after that, but we do know that they charged him federally. Federal charges, not local charges, as we predicted some time ago on our walk and talk. Why wouldn't the feds come in here and take over the whole case to make sure that they can handle it within the purview of the FBI? So let's take a look at the actual complaint. We have it pulled up here. David Depape, who allegedly attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, criminally charged now with 2 counts under 18 U.S. Code sections 115 and 1201, one for assault on the immediate family of a federal official. Federal official being Nancy Pelosi, her husband, attacked. Attempted kidnapping of a federal official as well, all occurring in California, in San Francisco, October 28th, being filed out of the Northern District of California Federal District Court. You see, the FBI agent who signed on this is Agent Stephanie Miner, and we don't know if she was there on scene at the location that we just covered. But this was approved by Laura Vartain, the assistant U.S. attorney, all filed on 1031 out of San Francisco. Honorable Judge Thomas Hickson presiding. Taking a look at the criminal complaint and the warrant, we see that the FBI special agent writes, I, Stephanie Miner, special agent, do declare as follows. I make this affidavit in support of an application under the Federal Rules of Procedure for a warrant and a criminal arrest complaint filed against David Wayne Depape for the following reasons. 1, I believe that there is probable cause to support a finding that Depape assaulted Paul Pelosi, an immediate family member of the U.S., Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, with the intent to retaliate against her. And also violation of 18 U.S. Code by attempting to seize and kidnap an official as well. I'm setting out more detail below, but the facts and the investigation lead me to believe that Depape was prepared to detain and injure Pelosi when he entered the residence. And she says Speaker Pelosi here. They say that Depape had zip ties, tape, rope, and at least one hammer with him that morning. Evidence further shows that Depape assaulted Mr. Pelosi with Depape's own hammer. There we go. So we didn't know whose hammer it was, but the special agent says it was Depape's hammer. She continues. She says, I submit this affidavit for the limited purpose of securing a criminal complaint and an arrest warrant. I believe there's probable cause. I've done this and written this based on my experience. I've got a lot of it as a federal officer, and they form the basis of my opinions. She says, I am a special agent with the FBI. I've been there since 2019. I work in San Francisco. I investigate people who commit violent crimes. I participated in a lot of things, including a 21-week new agent training. Wow, long time. And I have assisted with a lot of different things. I'm an investigator and I'm a great FBI agent, blah, blah, blah. Now, she details for us the U.S. code that is applicable here, 18 U.S. code, the 2 different sections. You see the criminal charges are sort of detailed here as follows. We've got the first section, whoever assaults, kidnaps, or murders, or attempts or conspires to kidnap is guilty of the law, violating the law. And the other one, whoever unlawfully seizes, confines, intermingles. Kidnapping charges are so broad that essentially, if you even limit a person's mobility, like if you stop a person from being free to leave, that prevention of their physical movement, right? Many prosecutors would argue that alone is enough for kidnapping. So even though, he never put him in the back of a trunk and hauled him off the premises, just the fact that he was sort of there and limiting his ability to do things is going to support the probable cause finding, is according to most FBI agents, or prosecutors, I should say. Facts supporting probable cause, she continues, she says, on October 28th at 2:23 a.m., San Francisco dispatch got a 911 call from Paul Pelosi. He was located at his residence in San Francisco, California. Pelosi stated words to the effect of, which is very interesting. Why didn't she just say what he said? Words to the effect of, there is a male in the home and that male is going to wait for Pelosi's wife. Pelosi further conveyed that he does not know who the male is. The male said his name is David. Okay, so that's at 2:23 a.m. We have 8 minutes later at 2:31. San Francisco police officer Colby Wilms responds to the resident. So we've got a sort of a short time, 8 minutes later, they're there. Colby shows up, knocks on the front door. When the door was opened, by whom? Pelosi and Depape were both holding the hammer with one hand, and Depape had the other hand holding onto Pelosi's forearm. So maybe Pelosi's got two hands on it, and Depape's got a third hand on it, and then Depape's hand is also going on Pelosi's arm. Okay, so we've got like a three thing going on, two hands on the hammer. Pelosi greeted the officers. Oh, good evening, gentlemen. The officers asked them what's going on. The heck is this weird situation? Depape responded. He says, everything's good. Officers then asked Pelosi and Depape to drop the hammer. Okay, interesting sequence there. Hello, officer. You guys good? Yeah, everything's good. Okay, can you drop the hammer? Depape then pulled the hammer from Pelosi's hand and swung the hammer, striking Pelosi in the head. Okay, now that's not good at all, right? That is not a good thing. Striking an 80-something-year-old man in the head is not good. I do not condone that or endorse that in any way. And I hope he recovers completely. Officers immediately went inside and were able to restrain Depape. Okay. Now, while they were restraining Depape, Pelosi appeared unconscious on the ground. Officers removed a cell phone, cash, clipper cards, and an unidentified card from Depape's right short pocket. Depape provided officers his first and last name. After officers asked Depape if he had an ID on him, he said it might be in his backpack on the back porch, but later stated his backpack was near the broken glass, the window. When officers removed Depape from Pelosi's residence, police body-worn camera footage showed a glass door that appeared to be laminated glass broken near the door handle. Laminated glass meaning that it doesn't, explode and shatter. Well, it shatters, but it doesn't explode outside the frame. It's sort of contained. So, newer residents, so you don't have broken glass shattered all over the place. It sort of is self-contained, like your car windshield. San Francisco Police Department recovered zip ties in Pelosi's bedroom and in the hallway near the front door of the Pelosi residence. Front door. And in the hallway near the front door. So, yeah, I'd love to see a layout of this property and where did he come in? Because there was backpack on the back porch. So you see here, there's a back porch and a front door. So he entered through the back porch, went to the front of the residence. This is a giant residence, right? It's a giant mansion. And apparently he's dropping zip ties as he's sort of meandering around, probably looking for the podium and Nancy Pelosi. In addition, law enforcement searched Depape's backpack at the Pelosi residence, and they found, among other things, a roll of tape, white rope, one hammer, one pair of rubber and cloth gloves, and a journal. We have witness statements now from the San Francisco Police Department. Colby, who had this case ripped away from him by the FBI, I'm sure Colby's very competent, probably was thrilled to investigate this until those feds came in. They're like, it's our jurisdiction. But Wilms was able to interview a witness one, don't know who that person is, who saw an individual in all black carrying a large black bag on his back, walking near the Pelosi residence where witness one was parked. Oh, witness one was working private security at an address nearby. Witness one then heard what sounded like banging on either door or car, and then heard the sirens within a minute or two. Oh, private security officer. I wonder if Nancy Pelosi had any private security there. because she's the Speaker of the House. Pelosi was interviewed by Officer Arian Starks in the ambulance during the transport to the hospital. Pelosi says, "I've never seen Depape before." Pelosi said, "I was asleep when he came into my bedroom," and he stated that he wanted to talk to Nancy. Which is a scary thing, right? That sounds horrible. I understand that when Depape refers to Nancy, he means Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi's wife, is what he's clarifying for us. Thank you. When Pelosi told him that Nancy was not there, Depape stated that he would sit and wait. Pelosi stated that his wife would not be home for several days, and Depape reiterated, "I'll just hang tight. This is a big place. There's plenty of room out there for me." Pelosi then, interestingly, was able to go into the bathroom, which he was then able to call 911. He stated that when the officers arrived, that was when Depape struck him with the hammer. In a subsequent interview with law enforcement officers on October 30th, Paul stated that Depape had a hammer with him during the events. And further, the hammer, the attempted murder weapon, did not belong to the Pelosi family. Depape's interview then. So the San Francisco police, who are no longer in charge of this case because it's been commandeered by the FBI, they sat down Depape. It was a Mirandized interview. It was recorded. And I wonder if we'll ever hear that. Here's what it sounds like in summation. The FBI special agent says that Depape stated that he was going to hold Nancy hostage and talk to her. If Nancy were to tell Depape, quote, "the truth," he would let her go. But if she lied, he was going to break her kneecaps. Depape was certain that Nancy would not have told the truth, and thus broken kneecaps. In the course of the interview, Depape articulated that he viewed Nancy as the leader of the pack of lies told by the Democratic Party. Which is accurate. I mean, she is the leader. She's the leader of the House. It's true. Depape also explained that by breaking Nancy's kneecaps, which we do not endorse here, she would then have to be wheeled into Congress, which is, don't endorse that, which would show other members of Congress that there are consequences to their actions. Depape also explained generally that he wanted to use Nancy to lure another individual to Depape, which I don't know who that might be. But he continues, he says, special agent writes, Depape stated that he broke into the house through a glass door, which was a difficult task that required the use of a hammer, which is why he brought the hammer, I guess, in the first place. Maybe the hammer wasn't a murder weapon. It was just a glass breaking device that he needed to use. Depape stated that Pelosi was in bed, appeared surprised by him. Depape told Pelosi, "Wake up!" And Depape told Pelosi, "I'm looking for Nancy." Paul then responded, "She's not here. Who are you?" Pelosi asked how they could resolve the situation. Okay, Nancy's not here, but is there anything I can do to help you? And what do you want here? Depape stated that he wanted to tie Pelosi up so that Depape could go to sleep. Because he said, "Man, I'm tired. I've been carrying this backpack to your house." For carrying the backpack all the way to the Pelosi residence. He's like, "Oh my gosh. I got a hammer in here. I got gloves in here. Rubber gloves and cloth gloves, by the way. Along with zip ties." And so maybe that explains the zip ties that were dropped off by the front door. When he came in the back door, he went to the front door and started emptying out the backpack because it was so heavy. So he's like, "Will you just shut up, Paul? Go back to sleep. I'm going to tie you up. I'm exhausted. I've been carrying this thing. It's like, 5 pounds. It's killing my back." Around this time, according to Depape started taking out twist ties from his pocket so that he could restrain Pelosi. Twist ties or zip ties? Because those are different. Twist ties are those things you put around your loaf of bread, aren't they? Zip ties might be a little bit different. If they're actual twist ties, I'm not sure he's going to get too far with that because they say twist ties. They don't say zip ties. Pelosi moved towards another part of the house, but Depape stopped him, and together they went back into the bedroom. While taking and talking with each other, Pelosi went into a bathroom where Pelosi grabbed a phone call to call 911. Depape stated he felt like Pelosi's actions compelled him to respond. Depape remembered thinking that there's no way that the police are going to forget about this phone call. Depape explained that he did not leave after the 911 call because, much like the American founding fathers with the British, he was fighting against tyranny without the option of surrender. Depape reiterated his sentiment elsewhere in the interview. George Washington, founding fathers and Thomas Jefferson, Tree of Liberty, blah, 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 right? MAGA insurrectionary speech. Paragraph E, the special agent continues. She says, Depape stated that they went downstairs to the front door. The police arrived and knocked on the door, and Pelosi ran over and opened it. Oh, so there's that little factual change. We were waiting for the third party to open the door. Who opened the door? Politico and others reported that the door was opened. And it wasn't by Pelosi and it wasn't by Depape. So who was it? Well, according to this FBI special agent, Pelosi opened it. Pelosi grabbed onto Depape's hammer, which was in Depape's hand, which is very curious. I mean, if the cops are there and he went over to the door and opened it, and this was a home invader, wouldn't Paul Pelosi step outside of wouldn't he step out? He opens the door, cops are there. Wouldn't you go outside the door and say, there's a friggin' maniac in my house with a hammer? What are you doing? This is ridiculous. Go get him. But he says, greetings, officer. They say, what's going on here? And he says, we're good. And then Paul grabs the hammer to launch this fight. It's weird. At this point in the interview, Depape repeated that Depape did not plan to surrender and that he would go through Pelosi. Depape then stated that he pulled the hammer away from Pelosi and swung the hammer toward Pelosi. Depape explained that Pelosi's action resulted in Pelosi, quote, taking the punishment instead. Special agent continues, she says in paragraph 16, that there were items found at Depape's residence. We saw previously the FBI showed up there and they went and they meandered around and they told that journalist, get out of here. But on October 29th, law enforcement went to Depape's residence. They determined that he lived in the garage of a residence on Shasta Street in Richmond. They interviewed the owner of the premises who confirmed that Depape had resided in the garage for approximately 2 years. On the 29th of October, law enforcement searched the garage at Shasta Street pursuant to a search warrant. Among other things, agents seized 2 hammers, a sword, and a pair of rubber and cloth gloves. The agents also found evidence that Depape lived in the garage, including DMV paperwork, IRS letters, and PayPal credit cards. FBI agent Stephanie Miner says, based on the information above, there is probable cause to believe that David Depape intentionally assaulted Paul and attempted to kidnap Nancy Pelosi. Therefore, I request a criminal complaint and an arrest warrant be issued. And the judge, of course, signed off on that. Honorable Thomas X. Hickson, United States Magistrate Judge out of the Northern District of California, all summarizing the FBI's take on the attack alleged on Paul Pelosi. And just like anybody in this country, David Wayne Depape deserves the presumption of innocence just like everybody else. We'll see if he gets it now that the FBI is swept in to take charge on this thing. But the media is having a field day over this. They are just latching onto this. What could possibly be more convenient than an attack on the skull of the speaker's husband just a short week before the election starts? On the Mika and Joe Brzezinski show, they blamed the whole Paul Pelosi attack on Donald Trump. And Mika is saying it's his fault that everything that is wrong in this country is continuing to deteriorate.
And welcome to Morning Joe. It is Monday, October 31st.
Where is
Paul
Joe?
Pelosi, the husband of the Speaker of the House, the woman who was second in line to the presidency, was savagely attacked on Friday. And while surgeons were operating on the fractured skull of the 82-year-old grandfather, deranged right-wing fanatics, Trump media allies, and some of the most powerful people in the world were feverishly trying to stir up conspiracy theories that distracted from the central political headline of this story.
What?
That years of Republican propaganda and Trump-fueled fascism led 42-year-old David Depape to break into Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco home.
Years of Trump propaganda, years of MAGA insurrectionary language, she said, was the main headline that dictates and details exactly what happened in this case. All those years of MAGA Republicans drove Dave Depape to go do this,
seemingly with the intent to harm her. Today, he'll likely be charged with the attempted murder of the speaker's husband, who was in the home when Depape allegedly invaded it. San Francisco police say he smashed his way in.
He wasn't charged with attempted murder, was he? He was only charged with attempted kidnapping and an assault on a family member of an elected official. Not attempted murder. It was a hammer.
And a man on a mission and confronted Paul Pelosi, but looking for Nancy. According to the AP, citing a person familiar with the situation, Pelosi told the intruder that he had to use the restroom. He was engaging with him, trying to hold him off. And in the restroom, that's where Paul Pelosi's phone was charging. And that's when he dialed up 911.
And then when the cops showed up, he walked back into the residence and had a conversation with David, more specifically, and said, let me take that hammer back from you now. And then that's when he got attacked. And the cops were standing there like, what is going on? Before they realized maybe they needed to do something. So you've got Mika and Joe Brzezinski, very lovely couple there on whatever network they're on. And Mika sort of runs things, and she says that it's all Donald Trump's fault. Any opportunity that they can use to connect anything that's bad to their political enemies, they'll do it, even when there's no evidence to support that at all. In fact, there's evidence to support the opposite. We already saw that the attacker, allegedly, on Paul Pelosi was living in a very interesting location where there were vans that had flags that looked like rainbow flags. And we've seen other support from this individual, David Depape, joining nudist colonies and protesting and standing up for BLM and all sorts of different things. But the media has called him a MAGA insurrectionist. This is David Depape's neighbor, who actually knows a little bit more about him, lives nearby, says this guy is totally bonkers. And if anything, he's a lefty, not an extremist MAGA Republican.
Our vehicle was out of commission. I was walking past, and Gypsy's son was with a small little girl, and he was on the bus, and the little girl and Gypsy's son were walking away from the bus, and the guy remained on the bus. And that's when I recognized his face. That's the only time I ever saw his
That's David
was
she's talking about.
The last month or so, or a couple weeks.
Do you know how long he stayed during that a couple months ago?
No, we try to just avoid them at all costs.
Okay.
Because they're unwell.
They, bother us.
Okay, but so the last time you saw him was a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
And he was here for a few days?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything strange about him or anything that stood out?
There's something strange about the whole household.
Everybody's
the
weird.
entire household is very, very strange.
How about him?
He is birds of a feather with akin to them. So they are just, nudist drug abusers, and that's who gravitates toward them.
And the children who live there, they seem to be underage or under 18.
I'm not sure how old they are.
Okay.
And Trisha, again, what do you say their politics are?
Politics.
I'm not sure. I would imagine that they're more left-leaning because of their support for the gay community and for for other people. But it is now I'm not sure what way they lean because
they have the flag.
Because of you. Now I'm not sure what way they lean, because everybody in the media has been telling me this is a MAGA racist extremist Republican, but I'm the neighbor. I live right next to them. There's flags all over the place. Looks like the people they support, their activities with the gay community. I would think that they're lefty, but now based on you people telling me differently, I'm not so sure about that.
for other people, but it is now I'm not sure what way they lean because
they have the flag, the LGBT flag with the pot.
Yeah.
So.
But any signs of anti-Semitism?
You know, they are completely unhinged, so I wouldn't.
Completely
I wouldn't be
unhinged.
surprised at all. They nothing that they believe in aligns with their actions. So they'll say that they are, you know, pro Black lives, and then they'll call the police on Black people, and so they don't stand by their actions. Don't stand by their words.
So some paranoid behavior, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Paranoid.
And
They're
almost
very
and some
skeptic.
psychotic behavior too.
Yes.
Okay.
Was that also demonstrated when David was the president, or was that times when
It's never changed how.
Yeah,
they've
psychotic,
acted.
unwell
David acted the
behavior.
same way?
From what I saw of him, he's never approached me or my partner at all.
The mainstream media calling this MAGA insurrection 2.0. Nancy Pelosi couldn't keep control of the United States Congress House, apparently can't control her own house either, allowing insurrections to take place everywhere we turn. The media turning it into insurrection. They're turning these things into political hit jobs, and they're not at all. They are unwell people, in this case particularly, who apparently was in Nancy Pelosi's house, even by the media, or even if you give this story every benefit of the doubt and say everything that FBI agent said is true, what we're hearing from the neighbors and others is this person is just a sick, unwell person. The disgusting tendency of Mika and Joe Brzezinski and others on the media to categorize this as a MAGA attack is disgusting, but they do it because it's election season. Now, this would be an interesting case to defend. I mentioned this on a prior walk and talk, but I don't know how this person is, right? David Depape. If there is any hint at invitation, if there's any additional facts, and this guy is willing to talk about those things, that could really change the dynamic of the prosecution, right? If he's not well, if he's incompetent, then it's hard to prosecute him because we have competency requirements in this country. You can't prosecute insane people because it's not due process, right? They are unwell. You can't criminally prosecute somebody who is not knowing what the heck is going on. We try to rehabilitate those people. But if he's not insane, if he's not unwell, if he is restorable, and he has something additional to add to this, this could really complicate things for the U.S. prosecutors if there is another angle to this story. If there is not another angle to this story, well, then we should see everything, should see a very cut and dry prosecution, probably see a big fat plea deal with a big heavy penalty, and we'll see if this guy takes it. But until then, we, of course, will continue to cover it. Pelosi and Depape, criminal charges taking place out of the Northern District of California. The feds coming in to sweep up the entire investigation so that the FBI can handle it. Meanwhile, we'll ride along. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you're watching this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.